Hello, my friends. Welcome to Your Seat at Table. I'm Rick, of course, and we are looking at Battletech's second succession war. So years and there, it was one of those mystical things back in the day when Battletech first came out. Is all these backstory, you know, uh, trinkets or teases that existed. The first and second succession wars. We were coming into the very end of the third succession war, which had been raging for excess of 100 years at that point. And everyone in the history knows that the first succession war was extremely devastating to the inner sphere great houses as a whole, the inner sphere as a group. Um, but it really was the second secession war that kind of finished off a lot of the what the first one started. And one of those things that we see finished off is the warship fleets, for example. The conflict between the first and second succession wars is so devastating for the great houses' war fleets that they all but cease to exist. That a few of them have a token warship here and there, but for the most part, they keep those token warships in very safe locations because they don't have they're not likely to replace them anytime soon. That's another thing. We see the devastation of the orbital shipyards and the ground facilities that produce the numerous amount of components that a warship required to be manufactured and maintained. This further, degraded the great house's abilities to even to maintain, let alone replace any losses that they had suffered. So at some point toward the end of the second succession war, it becomes an unspoken acknowledgement amongst all the great factions that warships are off the table. There just isn't left. There isn't enough left to really use them, and a few rare times that they do, they get taken down too. Then there's at some point before the end of the third succession war, there's no remaining warships in anybody's hands outside of the clans or Comstar in their that they're keeping secret. So the succession war, I was watching or having some discussion on Red's channel back when his channel was much smaller and I wasn't buried under 15 50 60 people at a time all clamoring for his attention. We was discussion about some of the succession wars, and somebody brought up the fact that they'd actually put out some books for it, and I got really lucky to find this on the internet at the reasonable book price, not some inflated crazy price. This was probably approximately 2017. Says 2017 to 20, which don't make sense to me. Let's see. Let's see a date here. It says 2017 to 2020. Right. So we have the Crucible, Rise and Fall, Tribes, Apocalypse, Breathing, Second Succession War, War Renewed, Tightening the Screws, Forefront War, Jar and the Comstor War, Politics of Succession, Advances and Reversals, Running on Empty, The Last Gaps. Now we got a section on personalities of the Second Succession War, deployment tables, rules annex, converting ISA combat commands to other systems, intelligence operations, tensions, short story, yellow. Yeah, says Succession War is the latest in a series of products that explore major but little detailed conflicts of the past of the Battletech universe. Volume focuses on the second Succession War, which caused an earlier conflict once known as the Great Succession War to be retroactively designated the First Succession War. The Second War, the last work found on the First Succession War, as well as Historical Liberation, Terra Duology, and Historical Reunification War. As with these previous volumes, First Succession War is part source book, part rule book, allowing players to recreate key events of the war. This was a very good book to have, and if you're a fan of the lore and you look the opportunities to play, have wargaming set up for various eras, this is one of those books that's worth having. Rise and Fall, Tribes, Apocalypse. breathing room, mercenary overboard, the second succession wars. Now, I'm not going to go through depth on this because Swin's got an awesome channel, has done this in depth. You could not go wrong by listening to stuff when it comes to these things. If you haven't already, I highly recommend go looking for his channel. If I remember, I will include a link below. If I forget, please somebody remind me to put a link below. Commonwealth Combine Front, the Combine Sons Front, the Sons Confederation Front, the arrival of the Minnesota tribe, the Duke and the Mercenaries, best laid plans, right? Old timesheet for work, old job. Uh, the Quiet Eagle, tightening the screws, the Dragon strikes, black wind, red wind, Nightingale sings, the walls of Titangrad, Eagle swoops. House Merrick was a reluctant participant in the Second Succession War, eventually drawn in through the machinations of Comstar, but the Free Worlds League was no less enthusiastic than its neighbors once plunged into the conflict. Charles Merrick's fears about his neighbors and his paucity of information coming through safe prompted him to call on his sister Janet, an adept at Comstar, blah, blah. You didn't notice that since even from the earliest onset of Comstar, that the Free Worlds League has been deeply rooted or connected to Comstar in many ways that is kind of dodgy. Even that black hole and deportations, the manner of a fantasy, second succession war, communications interdict, the Forefront War, Operation Cookie Jar, and the Comstar War of 2837, 2842. Goodbye. Good stuff in there. Politics of Secession. Hinders War, New Caledonia. The Fifth Battle of Hesperus. Closed Pandora's Box. Excuse me. The Davion Curta Front. Man, I wish I had the opportunity to have played and rehashed some of these combats. It would have been fun. And I may eventually someday get a chance to do that anyway. Merrick Resurgent, Death of a House, New Type of War, Running on Empty, War starting to pander down, wind down, Regency and Revenge, 6th, 7th, and 8th battles of Hesperus, the oldest new profession. New peace and everything after 2863. So the Second Succession War was less destructive than the first, but in many regards, the post-Second Succession War situation was even more agnostic, and God damn it, agonistic. Gee, it sucks getting old. I had stuttering and pronunciation issues all since I was a kid too. That ain't ever improved. The First Succession War is truly most devastating of the three conflicts, without a doubt. Four, if you count the Fourth Succession War. However, it is my belief that it's the conflict at the Second Succession War that pretty much finished off what the First Succession War was attempting to do. From the perspective of devastating the technology base and the infrastructure and logistics base that pre-existed prior to the First Succession War breaking out, sets humanity back hundreds of years. So Comstar's plan and plot succeeded. Legacy of destruction. The losers, the inevitable consequences. War resumes. Then we get into personalities, yahoos, lots of yahoos, and then we have a breakdown of the various house militaries at the time, right? Thunderbolt. Yep. Good stuff. It's a good book to have. I think if you're truly a Battletech enthusiast, this was the Succession War series is definitely something you're worth having invested in and having on your shelf for reference purposes, and just an awesome read by itself. Just saying. Anyway, I'm Rick. Until next time, I hope you guys